fairly certain we'll go. After that, I have no idea. Maybe some of you have some idea. I was talking to somebody that had a good idea, and I was going to put it in here, but I forgot now what it was. But I'm really not sure. Anyone remember what that conversation was in terms of? Okay. The one idea I did get from someone was, I won't mention Lori's name. There could be either Lori here. We won't mention which one it might be. But maybe the teachers dress will go. I'm not too worried about that yet. Okay, new topics. Any new topics that are on the horizon? Likely to come in. Of course, I'm looking and saying there's no room at all. But the kinds of things, if I was thinking, if something new came in the next 5 years, I've got 3 candidates. Bootstrap, permutation tests, and logistic regression. Those are my 3 candidates for what might be the next topic to come in. The bootstrap and the permutation tests are really kind of replacing the old non-parametrics type of thing, so a different way of doing that. And I wasn't sure necessarily how many people here are familiar. I'm not really familiar with a lot of these, but I thought I'd just give sort of a quick idea what might be involved and see if I can describe any of these to you in 3 minutes. Then maybe it's something we can, within 5 years, get into the intro course. Just out of curiosity, how many people are familiar with like bootstrap? Okay. Permutation test? Logistic regression? It's a little more on there. Okay, so you can correct me as I go along here. Bootstrap. Here's a quick example of a bootstrap. Suppose we had a problem and asked, what's the interquartile range of the sample median when the sample size is n equals 20? Okay, and I thought about this. I mean, we all know what the standard deviation is to the sample mean, right? And if the sample size is 20, there's a nice formula for that. Anyone happen to know a formula for the interquartile range of the sample median? I mean, it's exactly a parallel problem. It should be just as obvious as S over squared of n, right? Anyone happen to know a formula for that? Okay. Well, suppose we wanted to estimate that. And all we have is a single sample of size 20. You got a single sample of size 20. Now again, if we're estimating the mean, we're perfectly comfortable to say we have some idea what the standard deviation of the mean is based on the sample of size 20. Okay? How would you do it for the interquartile range of the median based on the sample of size 20? Okay? And that's typical of the sort of things that the bootstrap is designed to do. And so here's what we would do. Okay. Whoa, there we go. This is a new package that is just ready to come out. I've been doing some evaluation of it and stuff. And this is actually something where you build these things up yourself. And if all goes wrong, I should try to. It's called Dynamics. It's called Fathom. And Dynamics, there it is. Looks just the same, right? But actually, you build all these things as you go along. And I didn't want to go through the process of building all these. But you've got up on top here all sorts of little tools, and you drop those down and put things in. And I'll show you a little bit how it happens live. But the basic idea is here's a sample of temperatures, body temperatures for 20 individuals. And the idea of the bootstrap is you take this sample of body temperatures, and from that sample you select another sample with replacement of size 20. Okay? So here's another sample drawn from this one of size 20, but it's drawn with replacement. Okay? And then from this sample you compute, oops, you can't see that. So here's the original sample, here's the sample of size 20 drawn with replacement. We compute from that sample the median. Okay, this is really our best guess at what the median might look like as we resample.
Is the second one drawn from the first sample?
From the first sample, because that's the only information we got is those 20 numbers.
Okay.
We don't have any other information.
Okay.
Okay, we don't know anything about the distribution. We just have those 20 numbers. So that's the best information we've got is just what's in those 20 numbers. There's no assumptions about whether it's normal or anything else. Okay, so we draw this sample with replacement from the original one, because with replacement it's going to vary from sample to sample. Okay? And then we calculate the median, and what this picture over here represents, okay, that's what the medians look like for 200 samples. What's it called? Bootstrap samples. That's 200 bootstrap samples. And then we ask down here, what's the interquartile range of that distribution of medians? So we're generating a sampling distribution here of the medians based on just those 20 numbers and resampling from them. Okay, that's as I understand it, one of the ideas of the bootstrap. If we wanted to do a confidence interval, we would just go to this distribution and chop off the bottom 5% or the top 5% and have a 90% confidence interval. All stuff over in between. Okay? That's the way the bootstrap sort of thing operates. I'll see if this will actually work live. I haven't tried this to see how it is in this machine. But you can just, if I want to do it again, this empties the collection. that'll collect another, right, so you can see just sample, 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 sample. I took the animation off. If the animation was on, you would see this distribution build up as you go along, but it goes a little slower.
What sample size are you taking from the original?
20,
Oh, just 20? Okay.
20, same size.
Same
Right, now again, that's not, you don't have to do that,
Okay.
but I've got 20 values there, I might as well, you could do it with smaller samples. But I'm interested in what's the interquartile range with sample size 20 look like, so I need samples of size 20.
Okay.
Okay? So there we go, now we got a slightly different picture, and now it's only 0.1. Okay, that's one of the things that's uncomfortable in teaching distribution about Bootstrap is the answers aren't always the same. But that's the way it is in statistics, and that's the way it is in data. John?
I think I'd be very uncomfortable teaching Bootstrap because I think it's a philosophically wrong idea in Bootstrap. It's a very good idea in some respects, but what George was saying last night, we need to think where we're getting this from. We don't have the distribution.
No, absolutely not.
And I work sometimes with Rich Goldstein, some of you may know Rich.
I know Rich.
Rich says, how come we want to learn more by throwing information away? And Bootstrap and Jack sampling, or throwing the information away in one sense, or trying to get more out of something like throwing something away. They do reveal some aspects of distribution, but they only reveal some aspects.
That's right. I agree. And that's part of the problem is, back when I said you've only got these 20 data points, you've got to do the best you can, right? You're Patty and you're sitting in your office and you've got to do something with this, right? This is one of those best things. It doesn't mean that it's going to give you accurate, great answers, but it may be the best you can do.
I think that's terrible. What that does is it makes the sample your parameter. And what you're doing is you're testing that sample as if it's a parameter. I mean, we do that in other places, like we flip a coin, which is essentially a bootstrap kind of thing, because there are two possibilities, and what we do is we sample over and over again and generate the binomial. What this is doing is taking this arbitrary set of data and saying this is a parameter, and what we're doing is getting some distributions as if this is the population that we want to deal with. But if we took another sample, we would have, it could be totally different. So none of,
Absolutely true.
None of these
Yeah.
things.
On the other hand, if you look at a lot of theory and you say, I'm assuming the world's all normally distributed, and it's not, and you're saying, I'm assuming this is data from normal distribution, so I'll use that normal model to base my inference on that, you may be making just as serious an error.
But if you take lots of samples,
I can't tell, I only got 20 data points.
No, but
Yeah.
the point being is that the samples that you deal with are, if you do sampling distributions, they are basically normal if you have a large enough sample, regardless of the shape of the
Right.
distribution. So we can override that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I don't think they're going to follow it.
Has anybody compared, actually taken a huge population, taken your 20 out, and then actually gone through and gotten the actual
Yeah.
median distribution?
Yeah.
Then how does this result compare to that? That's what I'm.
Yeah, and that's true. That's the kind of thing you want to do. And there's a lot of pitfalls.
How accurate is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls, and certain sorts of parameters will estimate pretty well the distribution, the variability, and others it's terrible. It's just awful.
He's asking you how accurate, how do they?
Depends
How
on
do they
the
compare?
depends on the underlying distribution.
I think it's-
Yeah, it depends a lot. Yeah, again, if you start off with a normal distribution, right, then this is not going to be as good as the normal distribution theory is going to be. But it's just like the non-parametric tests. When you apply them, do not have the same power as the parametric tests if the parametric assumptions are valid. But they protect you from making bad mistakes if those assumptions are not valid. And that's somewhat the same philosophy that's going on here.
It just sort of triggered something in my mind. I read an article in The Atlantic in the last issue about someone who has done something similar to this about making estimates about various things that nobody's been able to make predictions on, like how long the human race lasts and things like that. Did
Lori
anybody-
will tell you about that. Lori talked about that a little too.
What?
Lori knows.
Already
he's
talked about that. I'm sorry.
So he can fill you in some of this. In any case, I don't want to get too bogged down in this guy. I'm going to come back and, oops. Did I get to where I wanted to be? Okay, that's what I Okay, so I didn't convince you of that one, but I'm not using Bootstrap in my class yet either.
I
Why'd you
don't
pick
know
the median, for
consensus
example?
whether that's going to be added.
I picked-
think
That's just, you're not supposed to do.
Well, no, I know, but I picked that specifically because what struck me there was the idea of, we all just think routinely about find the standard deviation of the sample mean.
Yeah.
That's a routine thing, we don't think about that at all as something that's hard. But our students do, right? I was thinking originally I was going to find the interquartile range as the interquartile range. Which, I mean, those are hard concepts for students to even think about. We think about the standard deviation of the sample mean as a very obvious, easy sort of concept. It's not for students. I think when I start thinking about the interquartile range of the median, that seems like a much harder concept than the standard deviation of the sample mean. But it shouldn't be. It's exactly equivalent in terms of conceptual, what it's telling you. Okay, permutation test. I don't think I'll go through all this one, but is there a significant difference? It turns out actually that data has data for males and females in there. And if you look at the data, there's 9 males, mean of 97.99, 11 females, mean of 99.14. We could all do a t-test or something like that. That would all work just fine. How would this behave? And I'm not going to go through all that one. Where is it? How would that behave on the Bootstrap? And let me just give you a quick idea of what happens without actually doing it. Close that down. Here's a little bit the same data now with the gender and actually a name stuck on there. And just to give you an idea of how this Fathom thing works, you drop things like this is a data table, a summary table. And you do things like take the oral variable, plop it over there, and it'll put in the mean. You can change those statistics. You can take the gender, plop it in there, and all of a sudden you get 5 statistics based on that. So that's where the 2 sample means would come from. And the idea of the permutation test, which I won't go through now, would be to essentially take that column that's highlighted their genders and randomize it. Okay? If there really is no difference between males and females, if that tag is not relevant to the oral temperature, then I randomize that list and I create the 2 sample means and see how big the difference is. And I can draw a distribution of those differences and see if my original difference is in an unusual place, as George said, if it's off in the tail of that permutation distribution. Okay? And that again is a non-parametric sort of alternative to the t-test, okay? Which is really not too bad. It'll converge to a t-test relatively well.
It's also related to what we was talking about last night. If we do this popular thing that everybody does, is doing surveys in your class, as we do. And you look at the students and you say, well, what are their SAT scores and how do they compare with their grade point averages? You don't have a random sample. You don't have a sample at all. It's a problem. He was talking about last night with this method we use. Imagine being assigned randomly.
And I think this is something that probably will come in before the Bootstrap, because this, I think, gives you a good idea of what a p-value means in inference. Right? How unusual is that data if there really were no difference based on gender? And so I think that's something that may come along a little bit sooner. So that's the first try. Okay, so that'd be a permutation test. And again, you can cook up those distributions in Fathom to do that kind of thing. And the actually, let me just quickly show you one more Fathom thing before I do the logistic regression. There's one more with that here. Oh, I guess it's in the temperature data. Kill this guy. And just, there's actually another variable here in this data set, which is kind of hidden. This will go consistent with Patty's talk. We've got actually 2 different ways of measuring temperature. And so the question is, are those consistent or not? And you can calculate a difference and so forth. What I just want to show you is if you want to do a plot, the plot is kind of neat on here. If we take here's a graph. Comes in as an empty graph. You just say, I want to graph someplace. And on this axis, I want to put the temperature measured by the oral thermometer. Okay, and it comes in as a dot plot. And very similar things Roxy was shown earlier. You can change that to a box plot. You can change it to a histogram. You can also, there's also bells and whistles. You can take this histogram and you can change grid size. That way you can rescale, any graphs you can rescale. You can stretch, you can play, all sorts of neat things you can do. The other thing you can do, let me put it back as a dot plot, is this is kind of a neat thing. We put the second variable in here. Okay, it's kind of neat how that second dimension really shows up the way that moves there. And you can dump the gender variable on top and see things as different symbols and play around with that sort of thing. So it's kind of a neat package, and you've got a lot of interactivity to play with it like that. Okay, that's good.
Then do permutation. Yes.
I wasn't going to do the permutation test on there now. Again, actually, this is the version 1 I downloaded from the web on Wednesday. I installed on my computer last night. And all those pictures there actually are just things you create. You start off with a blank sheet and you just pull these things down and put them there. So none of that comes sort of with the thing. But it doesn't take long to learn how to build it. Okay.
You generate a data set by drawing points on a plot.
You can add points to a plot. You can take points on the plot and move them around in the data set. Everything's linked to
You
each
can't
other.
generate a data set. You can't draw a plot and generate the data.
I'm not sure what will happen on that. Again, I've only been playing with it since a little bit in June, but the actual version just since last night, so I don't know a whole lot about it yet. Logistic regression, I'll use Minitab for this. This is one, Don Bentley's a colleague of mine out of Pomona, who's been arguing for years that you have to do logistic regression in the intro course. Some people are smiling because they know Don, and that's sort of his personality. But there's a point to this, because when I look at what students often pick on for project data, the response variable is often categorical. It's often a yes, no. Do you smoke or not? Does a student who's accepted to come to St. Lawrence come or not? Okay? They're really interested often in yes, no type things. And we don't have a lot of good methods for modeling yes, no response variables. Okay? And that's really what logistic regression is set up to do. It's what Jason mentioned in his talk the other day. The example we'll look here is we'll predict gender based on height. Okay, so we'll take a very obvious yes, no random variable and see how it relates to height. The data in this case, this is past stats workshop participants. 60 participants, we've got gender coded as the males, of course, as zeros, and the females are number 1. And we've got height in inches. I won't show you the data from various individuals, I'll just show you the plot. But if we think about doing ordinary regression on that data, thinking of gender as the response variable, as Jason had an example he showed us yesterday, right? That's the regression, right? Now, there's not totally without information there, okay? We know that the males, we have a negative slope. The males who have the larger heights tend to have the smaller gender value, okay? But when you start trying to interpret this line, when you try to interpret this line, you got to wonder about when I say, well, someone is 67 inches tall, that means they're 60% female. That's a little off. But I think what's more is I want to find someone who's 6 inches tall because there's a woman. That's 1.5 or something. And I'm not sure about the Neanderthals down here, and the negative values for the males. But I mean, clearly there's a problem in using an ordinary regression to do that. And so all logistic regression is set up to do, okay, and this is just done in Minitab, okay, is to bend that curve. Okay? And now what does this say? This is a logistic curve. So there's a formula with exponentials and stuff, of course, which I would never show students. I do this in the second course now, and I'm debating whether to get it into the first course. But it's a good way to model that. This is all fit actually by, I think, a maximum likelihood procedure. And it makes sense because the way you interpret this is the points on the line. When I look here at 67 and I see a value of about 0.6, that says that roughly 60% of your 67-inch tall people should be female. And roughly getting pretty close to 100% of the people who are 6 inches below should be female, and the very tall people, roughly 100% should be male. And it makes sense if you think about it, because how do we deal with categorical data? The main way we summarize that for the population is with a proportion. And this is the way we model that proportion. So I think logistic regression is one thing that has a good chance if the software is there where students can see the sort of plot, there's a good chance of getting into the intro stat course as a way of dealing with those sorts of data. And obviously you can make this into a multiplication, you can do lots of other things. But this very simple level, I think, could survive even an intro course if it's presented fairly carefully. Okay. Where is software going? Okay, and we've certainly seen a lot here over the last day and a half about new software things. And the theme which I think is most striking to me is what I call the merger of modes that goes on in software or in a lot of the technology. An example that's from the past is stats packages and spreadsheets. Right? What happens? You had stat packages, you had spreadsheets, and the stat package said, well, we'll use spreadsheets for data entry. And the spreadsheet said, well, we'll put in the stat analysis added, and they're just merging in to be the same sorts of things. Right? And I was talking to the Minitab rep yesterday, and they said they have a lot more spreadsheet features in their data entry, and Excel is still trying to get their stat add-ins right and stuff, and so there's this merger which has already happened. That's happening in a lot of different ones. Another common one is computer CDs, web applets, and textbooks. Right? There's that merger between the textbooks are getting CDs associated with them, you're getting textbooks on CDs. I mean, that distinction between them is definitely graying, and once you start down the slope, everything starts getting added in. Okay, and so I think I've seen examples of almost all of this now, where these are all getting merged in lots of different ways. And the exercises and the quizzes, Roxy was showing the quizzes which are online someplace, and there's just all sorts of ways that these things are coming together. And I think that's what's exciting about where software is going, is creative ways of bringing these various pieces together and give you different ways of going. What Roxy referred to as the eclectic mix of all these things, and trying to get some variety, and especially for different learning styles. The more different ways you can present something, the more chances you'll hit something that actually someone is going to relate to. So I won't make any specific predictions. I did though want to say about, and I didn't want to call it software, course, I'm not sure what you call these things anymore even. So I'm going to call them courseware systems. And I decided I would try to pick on four that I think are the best candidates, and this is again my own personal, this is what I think is likely to show up in my course sometime in the next 2 or 3 years. Okay, and you may have different candidates here, but the four I'm going to keep an eye on. Active Stats, I think is probably a leading candidate now. I like the seeing statistics stuff that we saw here. I like the stuff with CyberStats, there's good people working on that one. And I kind of like the stuff I saw in Fathom. Okay, although the visual statistics, I haven't seen too much that Roxy was showing through. That may be a candidate, but also, so we may have other candidates that you think might fit into that mix. But these are four that I think I'm going to try to keep monitoring and keep getting updates for, and see when they might start to get fit into my my particular course. I know Roxy's view would be just put them all in there and use them all wherever you want to use them and stuff. But I'm not quite ready to jump in that whole hog yet.
Which of those do you have to buy? Which of those do you have to buy?
You have to buy any of those. Yeah, so this is really looking at ones I can incorporate piece by piece, a Java applet here and that sort of stuff. I mean, those I sort of bring in as they come along. But these all would represent a cost investment and a more major overhaul of my course to implement those, because those all have a cost factor associated with them. Okay, what's next in technology and hardware? Who knows? Right? The best I can tell you is more speed, more space, more access. Now that works a couple of ways. It means programs are required more speed, more space, and more access. But we should also have it there. That's sort of a given. More interactive, I think, more customizable. I think, and those are both good things. I was talking again with Minitab about letting you put your own menu icon up there and have your own macros to dangle off that students can just click on, just like any other menu option. You know, that level of being able to customize things. That's one of the things. Whenever I look at these packages, I'm going to know what can I get in there and tweak to work better in the situation I want to present my students in, rather than trying to adjust how I present things to match the software. I want to be able to adjust the software. A lot more automatic. More and more stuff will be done automatically. That's both good and bad, because when it's done automatically, that means you can't customize it. So those are really at odds with each other in a lot of ways. I was looking at the things we were doing yesterday, and we were plotting histograms and putting normal curves on. And first we plotted histograms and adjusted the boundaries and stuff, and that was all fun. And we put a normal curve on there, and naturally somebody said, well, now can I adjust the boundaries? Well, no, if you got the normal curve on there, you're stuck in way someplace else, you can't adjust the boundaries anymore. And so those sorts of things, I think, automatic is not necessarily good. And more video. I think that's the other thing we're going to start seeing. As bandwidth increases, we'll be able to get to see more and more live video and less static pictures, more dynamic things going on. Okay, and finally, what's next in my particular course? Okay, starting in just about 3 weeks. Actually, one day less than 3 weeks from now. What's going to be new in the fall? And the one thing I know is going to be new in the fall is a new classroom. This is what it looked like on Wednesday morning.
Wow.
And the new thing here, and I'm curious if anyone's had experience with this, is this this electronic whiteboard. Not sure if any of you guys had experience with electronic whiteboards. John has, and so good. I will talk to
Ottawa
you.
developed the software. The University of Ottawa developed the software for Panasonic.
Okay, I'm not sure what brand this is. Maybe.
But the Panasonic one uses
Yeah.
the
Okay.
8 years ago they developed it.
Yeah. And again, as you can see, this is my room. I'll be teaching every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all next fall. Wherever you are, think of me between 8:30 and 12:30, sitting in this room, trying to figure out how to use it. I gather what this is like a giant LCD screen that you can write on, but you can also write on, and the computer will do the writing for you. So you bring up, as I gather, these blank pens that are color coded, so you don't figure out what color they are, and you write, and a line appears from the computer monitor, but it's also stored in the computer, and you can save all that sort of stuff. And so it's really going to be an interesting interaction. You can move things around with your fingers, the mouse, on this thing. So I can actually grab this box plot and move it like this, and it actually moves with me on the
Do
screen.
you write on the big whiteboard, or do you write
The
in
big-
your little station?
No, you can do either.
Oh.
I mean, you can use it as a projection system, but also you can use that as like a big LCD screen, and you can write on it. You can write with regular markers, but you can also write with these computer ones, and then everything's saved in some sort of computer image. Or you can project up some software, and doing things like moving those things around in Fathom, I could actually, I haven't tried it yet, I can actually grab those with my hand and move them on the screen and put them where I want to put them. Now, this is kind of a weird
It's
concept.
kind of small.
Yeah, I think they're pretty expensive. I think
Yeah.
depending on the number of pixels that they got. Now, they obviously have a lot of work to do. They've got to finish my station, and there's going to be whiteboards. I need to decide that for regular whiteboards. So there's lots of other stuff's got to get done in this room, hopefully sometime in the next 3 weeks.
No windows? No windows? No sectors?
Windows is, I've got to determine how to interpret
No,
that.
windows to look at it.
I don't want to get Microsoft mad at me. Yeah, no, there's actually windows at the back of it. This used to be a room, you can see there's some chairs facing the other way. It used to face this way. They've turned the rooms so that it's longer and students can't sit as far away. And the windows are all in the back wall. So I'll be able to watch the birds and stuff, and they'll all be watching me. So again, I'm not sure if anyone's got experience or ideas how to use those. That's my new foray into technology for the fall.
What's the cost of them?
I have no idea, but I'll bet it's a lot. I mean, there's a fairly good, you can just see in the corner, there's a fairly good projection system here. And I'm not sure how this whole thing works. I haven't got in there, they haven't got hooked it up so I could try it yet. They'll wait until classes start. And then they'll say it's okay. I've been wanting to get in there and see what happens, see how it actually behaves. I know that someone was showing me an image, and like there's things that appear in the bottom that say right click and left click, and you can do those. And they're also going to, actually, one thing I do like is they're going to have a wireless mouse I can use in that, which is nice, because then I can wander around and not have to be tied to the station.
And we had wireless mice until they found an awful lot of professors put them in their briefcase and took them home accidentally.
Ah,
And caused, and actually wrecked the whole week, because they do it at 2 in the afternoon classes, go through till 10, and the other classes could do anything with the system.
yeah.
So you can imagine the havoc with wireless mice stuff. So now everything's tied down.
But that's all I've got. Any questions? Question?
Do you think publishers are going to start bundling all these different modes, like cassette?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the things, this is actually one thing I didn't mention. We're using Moore's Basic Practice, and I talked to the rep yesterday, and there's a CD bundle with that. And one of the things there's another package called Easy, which is kind of like a Dazzle sort of thing, but only on a CD, with lots of real good exercises, case studies, data sets, that sort of thing. And that's been getting bundled with that. That's another thing that's happening. You're getting, in fact, another thing I saw there which is interesting is several chapters, optional sections, which they didn't want to put in the book, but some people still insist, like binomial, still insist on teaching.
Right.
They're putting those as PDF files on the CD, so that if you want your students to cover one of those additional sections, it's there, but they're not actually getting it in the textbook. So I think that's one thing. Customizable textbooks is another thing that's going to happen. You say, I want chapter 1, 7, 8, 6, and 17, and make my book up that way. And that's certainly another thing that will be coming along. Any other prognostications?
First of all, I want to thank you for showing the piece that I have seen. But then I want to go back to the original question, and that was, the confidence interval on the time meeting, was the question. Well, wouldn't you be looking at, the interquartile, what's the interquartile range? Wouldn't you just want to subtract the first quartile from the second?
Yes.
Third
Yeah.
quartile, and that would give you the interquartile range?
No, what's the idea, what's the interquartile range of the sample median? Okay? Just in much the same way we ask, what's the standard deviation of the sample mean? And I don't know, does anyone know, even for a nice distribution, is there an equivalent to S over square root of n? I don't know of one. I don't know of any at all for interquartile ranges, actually.
I have a question you may not know the answer to, but
That's probably right.
I hope someone does. And that is that when you get all of these texts that are online, I'm just worried about what happens if they become fairly popular, about the overload. I mean, I noticed that when we're all applying now, we have this long delay. But if somebody sells 100,000 copies or something like that, and they're during the day and everybody's using them in a class and they're all trying to access it, we might have the AOL kind of thing where it shuts down for a long time. And that would be a real serious problem if we're using online text. Just the activity level. Is anybody given that any thought? Does anyone know?
I agree that it's a potential in the same way AOL faced that, and I would hope they might react in the same way, saying...
But by the time they react, you lose 2 weeks of class.
That's possible. But my sense is that bandwidth is doing a remarkable job of keeping up with demand.
But this is going to be a new location.
Yeah, and I think that is a possible... I mean, that's something I think that in reviews you're going to have to evaluate.
Right. I just thought I'd mention it to people.
Yeah, that's certainly something to be concerned about. Because
Applets and all these things can run locally, and put on CD-ROMs very easily.
Well, not
That's
the
really a
text.
problem.
a lot of the text things.
Yeah, they're not going to be going to the main site. I think we're going to be having little CDs for everybody.
They're having a lot of games. I mean, some of the ones, I forget, I think it's the, if you were there for some of the University of Illinois one with the making correlation game and stuff, they've got actually a little a file you can download.
Right. Well, if you can download
and load all those
then you
apples.
don't have the problem.
And load all those apples up locally. And so that may be part of what comes in. You'll get a license which allows you to download that file.
I think part of the problem is not so much the bandwidth on the server. When it all goes down, it's not the bandwidth on the actual server.
Yeah, the server going down is certainly something where I'm assuming if these are really going to be seriously on site, there's going to be backups, there's going to be mirror sites, there's going to be other alternatives so that when lightning strikes at the particular home site.
If the server goes down, the rest of the country goes down.
No, that doesn't work that way. Any other, Rick?
How much do you think the fact that a lot of kids are going to have AP stats, and even if they don't have that, there's a lot more statistics in the curriculum? Years ago, I used to look at a stat course as a chance to revive interest in mathematics in a quantitative area for people who were really sick of algebra. And now we're going to have students who are sick of statistics. Possibly. Anyway, how much do you think that the AP course is going to make a difference in other statistics?
I think the AP stat course is going to be huge. That's my own guess. And just the way that's grown. And Roxy, you know the numbers. How many in the first year took it?
First year 7,500, the first year just over 15,000, year
Okay.
two.
And they stopped there and they said, oh, that means that someone drew the line and sort of joked how many would be to the third year and how many came to the third year?
Just over 25,000 were
So it actually exceeded that sort of naive line going up there and stuff. And so, yeah, I think exactly correct. I think there's going to be, as I mentioned, a lot more pressure for that second level course, for something beyond the intro level, because we're going to have a lot of students coming in with that. I think it's not a lot different than the AP Calculus situation now. And that's I know a thorn for a lot of schools. What do you do with all the students who come in with AP Calc of various qualities? And where do they start in the calculus sequence and stuff? And it's easy now. We just say, well, you can start in Calc 2, or you can start in Calc 3. If you don't survive there, you can move back. We don't have the same progression in statistics yet. So that's going to be an issue we'll have to face.
Well, I think that's a good question. Not so much the AP. I'm not as worried about the AP staff, because typically they would skip this course, given that they're taking a replacement this one. But the fact that statistics is being integrated so heavily, especially in some states, into the K-12 curriculum, I haven't seen any movement, haven't seen a lot of, interest in looking at how we rethink the intro stat course. Because if I really look at the California standards, and I assume it's the same here, at least a third of what we have on our syllabus on the intro stat course, they should be coming to us with. And if we really, we always talk about how we're so tight on time, and plus if we really spend, if they've already seen, scatter plots, descriptive statistics, all those things, and we slog through those things, it's no wonder that they're kind of bored and put off by the time we get on to something that they might find interesting in. So I think it's a real challenge that you're raising. I think we ought to be rethinking the content in light of what they're coming to us with.
Yeah, the tricky part there is they don't come in consistently with that background.
Well, but if these ASSE standards become
that's true.
And if some do and some don't, then maybe we need somehow to shuffle those out, because treating everybody as if they've never seen any of this, I think we really lose a lot of the kids that might have had an interest, and that we could have done something interesting with, taking advantage of the background.
I know we've got a lot of New Yorkers here. Anyone have any plug into the new New York State Regent standards in mathematics? Because my sense is, yeah.
Linear regression, box plots, dot plots, scatter plots, quadron range.
It's all descriptive statistics.
Yeah.
There isn't any, as far as I can tell, I've not had any students who really know much about inferential statistics. The real problem is they tend to like the early part because they've had it before, and then as soon as it switches to differential, they just throw up their arms.
Well, it hasn't come through yet.
What?
In New York, it has.
Effective yet. The new math B curriculum
Right.
just was finalized. So
right, I know, but
it'll be 3 or 4 years before we see it in the colleges, but it is a huge difference.
And the other place I think that we have to address on that is teacher training. Because my sense is there's a whole lot of teachers out there who are going to be stuck teaching this. It's not bad now. The AP stats and stuff, you can get the 1 or 2 gung-ho teachers, they can go off and get themselves trained to do it. But my sense is that's going to be a big job for us in terms of training current teachers and future teachers to be able to handle that sort of curriculum. Right?
I don't see exactly the analogy between calculus and this AP statistics course. Calculus has always been a course in which a great mass of college students take 2 or 3 courses. The beginning statistics course has been usually, in my understanding, most of the people who take the beginning statistics course don't take a second statistics course. If the AP course is basically that course, then we're just going to have fewer people in college taking statistics.
Yeah, but I think what you're going to face, or what I've seen, is the kids who take that AP course and like it, like the ones who take calculus and say, yeah, this is good, I'm good at this, I like it. They want to have something to do when they get to college.
Well, I
we have a small statistics major, and it's one of the smallest ones on campus, only about 40 students, it's an undergraduate major. And these last 2 years, this year, we had 40 applicants or freshmen, which we've never had before. We admitted about 25 of them, 16 showed, and in our little orientation thing, when they came to open house in the spring, they went around and were introducing themselves. All but 3 of them were coming out of an AP stat class. And the AP stat class isn't going to count, it's not the course that you take. So I think it's really stimulating. So I was just really surprised by how many of them were coming that direction and really getting an interest in, even to the point of thinking they might major in statistics.
Can I ask one more thing of you? I know we did this earlier, but I think we really need a loud round of applause for Bob and Pat and David and the rest of the crew.